The comm panel on the bridge of the Vanguard Edge buzzed with an unfamiliar frequency, piercing through the hum of the ship's engines. Ethan Valen frowned, his fingers hesitating over the navigation controls. The ship was cruising the outer edges of the galactic neutral zone, where stray signals were often garbled scraps of static or long-dead distress calls. But this was different. The tone was sharp, deliberate, and unmistakably directed at him. The comm panel flared again, its screen flashing with an unregistered frequency. He tapped the controls, his brow furrowing as he routed the call to a secure channel. "This is Captain Valen of the Vanguard Edge. Identify yourself." Static crackled for a moment before a voice emerged. Low, hurried, and distinctly human. "Ethan Valen. You don't know me, but we don't have time for introductions. They're watching." Ethan leaned forward, his senses immediately on high alert. "Who is this? What do you mean they're watching?" "The Starborn," the voice hissed. "They've been watching you for years, Captain. Your bloodline. It's dangerous to them. You're the one they fear." Ethan's hand hovered over the disconnect button. Pranks and conspiracy theories weren't uncommon out here, and he wasn't in the mood for either. But something in the voice, its urgency, its desperation, kept him listening. "I don't have time for this," Ethan said. "Whoever you are, get to the point." The voice continued, its tone sharper now. "You're the last of the Valen line. The Starborn erased your family because of what you carry, Ethan. They left you alive because they thought you didn't know. But you do now." The comms cut abruptly, leaving only static. Ethan stared at the screen, his heart pounding. He tapped the panel to trace the signal, but the origin was scrambled. Dead air. No coordinates, no identifiers, just a void. "Captain?" A voice called from behind him. Ethan turned to see his first officer, Lieutenant Kira Darren, standing at the entrance to the bridge. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat braid, her expression a mixture of concern and curiosity. "Something wrong?" Kira asked, stepping closer. "Probably just a hoax," Ethan said, forcing his voice to remain steady. "Some crank trying to spook me." Kira raised an eyebrow. "You don't look convinced." Ethan shrugged, trying to shake off the unease curling in his gut. "It's nothing. Let's focus on getting to the trade station. We're low on fuel." But even as he spoke, the words of the mysterious caller echoed in his mind. "Your bloodline. It's dangerous to them." Hours later, the Vanguard Edge docked at an unregistered trade station on the outskirts of neutral space. The station was a patchwork of salvaged ships and modular platforms orbiting a dying star. Ethan and Kira disembarked into the dimly lit corridors, their boots clanging against the grated floors. "Keep an eye out," Ethan said, his hand resting on the sidearm strapped to his hip. "Places like this attract trouble." "You don't say," Kira replied dryly, scanning the shadowy figures milling about the station. Ethan had barely taken 2 steps into the main concourse when he felt a presence at his side. He turned sharply, his hand instinctively going for his weapon. "Easy, Captain," a smooth voice said. Ethan froze. The woman standing before him was stunning in a way that seemed almost unnatural. Her features were sharp and symmetrical, her silver hair flowing like liquid starlight. Her eyes, impossibly bright and shimmering, gave her away instantly. "A Starborn." "What do you want?" Ethan asked, his voice cold. The woman smiled faintly. "To talk. My name is Cirrus, and I think you've recently learned something about yourself that concerns us both." Ethan's grip on his weapon tightened. "I don't know what you're talking about." Cirrus tilted her head, her smile never wavering. "Don't insult my intelligence, Captain. The call you received, it wasn't a hoax, was it?" Ethan's mind raced, but he kept his expression neutral. Even if it wasn't, why would a Starborn care? "Because the Valen bloodline holds secrets that could unravel the foundation of our rule," Cirrus said, her tone matter of fact. "Secrets that others would kill to keep buried." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. "If that's true, why are you here? Shouldn't you be one of those others?" Cirrus stepped closer, her voice lowering. "Let's just say I'm not like the others. The Starborn are not as united as they appear, Captain. Some of us see the flaws in our dominion, the lies we've built our empire upon. I believe your bloodline holds the key to something greater. Ethan studied her carefully, his instincts screaming at him to walk away. But the curiosity gnawing at him was too strong. And what exactly do you want from me? To protect you, Cirrus said simply, and to help you uncover the truth. Ethan kept his hand near his weapon, his eyes locked on Cyrus. Every instinct screamed at him to walk away, but something about her calm confidence, the way she spoke as if she already knew what he was thinking, kept him rooted in place. Kira stepped closer, her hand hovering over her sidearm. Captain, you can't seriously be thinking about trusting her. She's a Starborn. I'm aware, Kira, Ethan said through gritted teeth. Cirrus's faint smile widened. She's not wrong to doubt me. Caution is wise. The Starborn have given you no reason to trust us. And yet here you are. Ethan shot back. What makes you different? Cirrus leaned in slightly, her voice dropping to a near whisper. Because I know what your bloodline means, and because I believe it's time for a change. Ethan's jaw tightened. You're going to have to do better than vague platitudes if you want me to believe you. Cirrus tilted her head, her silver hair shimmering under the dim station lights. The Veylan bloodline is not just a threat to the Starborn captain. It is the foundation of our power. Your ancestors were among the first to rise against the oppression of the old galactic order. They created something that we Starborn used to ascend, and then erased every trace of it from history. Ethan's heart pounded. What are you talking about? Cirrus's expression grew serious. A relic. A technology far beyond anything the galaxy has ever seen. It was created by the Veylans, and it allowed the first Starborn to transform into what we are now, immortal beings who draw power from the very stars. But the relic is flawed. It corrupts, twists its users into something less than mortal, yet far from divine. That corruption has been spreading through our ranks for centuries. Ethan frowned, his mind racing. If this relic is so dangerous, why haven't you destroyed it? Cirrus hesitated, her gaze flicking toward the shadows. Because the relic is not just a tool, it is alive, and it will not let itself be destroyed. Only someone with Veylan blood can sever its connection to the Starborn. Ethan stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. And you expect me to believe all this? That I'm supposed to be some kind of chosen one? No, Cirrus said firmly. I don't expect you to believe me, I expect you to let me prove it. The lights in the corridor flickered, and Ethan's hand went to his weapon. Kira stepped closer to his side, her gaze scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. Looks like your friends have caught up with you, Ethan muttered. Cirrus's expression hardened. They're not my friends, and they won't hesitate to kill all of us. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the station, accompanied by the hum of energy weapons. Ethan glanced at Kira, his pulse quickening. We need to move now. Cirrus gestured toward a nearby corridor. This way. Why should we trust you? Kira snapped. You don't have a choice, Cirrus said calmly, already moving. Ethan hesitated for a split second before following her, Kira close behind. The corridor twisted and turned, its walls narrowing as they descended deeper into the station's underbelly. The air grew colder, the hum of the station systems faint and distant. Where are we going? Ethan demanded. To a ship, Cyrus said without looking back. I have a way off this station, but we need to hurry. The sound of pursuit grew louder, the footsteps echoing closer. Ethan glanced over his shoulder, his grip tightening on his sidearm. We're running out of time. They burst into an open hangar bay, the space dominated by a sleek silver ship that gleamed like polished metal. Cirrus sprinted toward it, her movements fluid and precise. She tapped a panel on the ship's side and the hatch slid open with a hiss. Get inside, she ordered. Kira hesitated, her hand still on her weapon. This could be a trap. Ethan turned to her, his voice firm. If it is, we'll deal with it, but right now we don't have any other options. Reluctantly, Kira followed him onto the ship. The hatch closed behind them just as a squad of armed starborn soldiers entered the hangar. Cirrus darted to the cockpit, her hands flying over the controls as the engines roared to life. "Strap in," she called. "This is going to be rough." The ship lifted off the hangar floor, its thrusters igniting in a burst of light. Ethan and Kira barely had time to secure themselves before the vessel shot forward, weaving through the station's labyrinthine docking bays. The pursuing soldiers opened fire, their energy weapons sending bolts of plasma streaking past the ship. "Hold on," Cirrus said, her voice steady. The ship surged through a narrow exit tunnel, the walls a blur of motion. As they emerged into open space, the station's defense turrets locked onto them, their cannons glowing with charged energy. "Any brilliant ideas?" Ethan shouted. Cirrus's lips curved into a faint smile. "Just one." She tapped a series of controls, and the ship's exterior shimmered. The vessel vanished from view, cloaked in a field of bending light. The plasma bolts fired by the turret streaked harmlessly past them, and the pursuing soldiers fell away, unable to track their position. Ethan let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Nice trick." "It's not just a trick," Cirrus said, turning to face him. "It's a promise. I'm here to help you, Captain. But you need to decide whether you're ready to face the truth about who you are and what your bloodline means for this galaxy." Ethan met her gaze, the weight of her words pressing down on him. He didn't trust her, not yet, but for the first time he felt the faint stirrings of something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. The silence in the cockpit of Cirrus's ship was thick with unspoken tension. Ethan sat in the co-pilot's chair, his gaze fixed on the endless expanse of stars beyond the viewport. Kira stood behind them, her arms crossed, her expression a mixture of distrust and frustration. Cirrus broke the silence, her voice calm but firm. "There's a planet on the edge of the Nitherian system. It's uncharted, hidden by anomalies. That's where the relic is buried." Ethan turned to her, his brow furrowed. "You're sure about that?" Cirrus nodded. "I've studied the records, the fragments of your family's history that the Starborn failed to erase. The Valans built the relic to channel the energy of dying stars. They hid it when the first Starborn turned on them." Kira scoffed, her tone sharp. "And we're just supposed to trust you? A Starborn claiming to want to help humanity? Sounds convenient." Cirrus's eyes flicked to Kira, her expression unflinching. "You don't have to trust me. But ask yourself this. Why would I risk my life to protect you if I were lying? The Starborn would kill me just as quickly as they'd kill you." Ethan held up a hand, silencing Kira's retort. "Enough. We don't have time to argue. If she's telling the truth, this relic could be the key to stopping the Starborn. If she's lying, we'll deal with it when the time comes." Kira glared at Cirrus but said nothing, her jaw tightening. Cirrus tapped a series of commands into the console, and the ship's engines hummed to life. "The Nitherian system is heavily monitored. We'll need to take a detour through the Zoran Nebula to avoid detection. It'll add time, but it's safer." "Safer isn't a word I'd use with any of this," Ethan muttered. The journey through the Zoran Nebula was both mesmerizing and unnerving. The swirling clouds of ionized gas glowed in shades of deep blue and gold, their beauty masking the dangers lurking within. The ship's sensors crackled with interference, the nebula's volatile energy fields making navigation a challenge. Cirrus worked the controls with practiced precision, her expression focused. "Stay alert. The nebula is a haven for scavengers and pirates." As if on cue, the ship's proximity alarms blared. A cluster of small vessels emerged from the swirling mists, their jagged designs unmistakably pirate in origin. The comm panel crackled, and a gruff voice filled the cockpit. "Unregistered vessel, this is Captain Drenk of the Void Runners. You're trespassing in our territory. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded." Ethan leaned forward, his jaw tightening. "Of course it's pirates. Why wouldn't it be?" Cirrus's fingers flew over the console. "Their ships are faster, but ours is more agile. If we time this right, we can use the nebula's energy fields to lose them." Kira gripped the back of Ethan's chair. "Or we can fight." Ethan glanced at Cirrus. Can this ship handle a firefight? Cirrus hesitated. We can hold them off, but if we take too much damage, we won't make it to Nitherion. Ethan nodded. Then we run. The chase through the nebula was chaotic and harrowing. The Void Runner's ships darted after them, their plasma cannons lighting up the mists with deadly bursts of energy. Cirrus maneuvered the ship with precision, weaving through narrow passages and using the dense clouds as cover. Kira monitored the sensors, her voice steady despite the tension. 3 ships on our tail. They're gaining. Ethan gritted his teeth. There's got to be something we can do to slow them down. Cirrus's gaze flicked to the console. The nebula's energy fields are unstable. If we can lure them into one of the denser pockets, the ion bursts might take them out. And if they don't? Kira asked. Then we improvise, Cirrus said, her tone cool. Ethan's heart pounded as the ship veered toward a glowing cluster of energy. The Void Runners followed, their weapons firing relentlessly. As they entered the dense field, the ship's systems flickered, and the proximity alarm screamed. Brace yourselves, Cyrus called out. A massive ion burst erupted from the nebula, its energy tearing through the pirate ships. 2 of them exploded in brilliant flashes of light, their debris scattering into the mists. The 3rd ship veered off course, its engines sputtering before it vanished into the clouds. The cockpit fell silent except for the hum of the engines. Cirrus let out a breath, her hands steady on the controls. We're clear. For now. Ethan leaned back in his chair, his pulse still racing. Nice flying. Cyrus turned to him, her silver eyes sharp. You'll need more than nice flying to survive what's coming. Hours later, the ship emerged from the nebula into open space. The Nitherion system loomed ahead, its central star a dim, dying orb surrounded by planets shrouded in darkness. Cirrus set the ship on course for the uncharted world, her expression tense. Ethan stood beside her, his gaze fixed on the viewport. What's waiting for us down there? Cirrus's voice was quiet. The relic, and the Starborn who will do anything to protect it. Ethan met her gaze, the weight of their mission pressing down on him. Then we'd better be ready. As the ship descended toward the shadowed planet, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that the real battle was only just beginning. The planet loomed before them, a desolate sphere of jagged mountains and endless storms. Lightning forked across its surface in brilliant flashes, illuminating valleys choked with ash and rivers of molten rock. The air in the cockpit was tense as Cyrus guided the ship through the volatile atmosphere, the vessel shuddering with each gust of turbulence. This place doesn't exactly scream hidden treasure, Ethan muttered, his knuckles white as he gripped the edge of his chair. It was meant to be unwelcoming, Cirrus replied, her voice calm. The relic was hidden here to ensure it would only be found by those who truly needed it. Kira scoffed from her position at the navigation console. Or by those stupid enough to look for it. Ethan shot her a look. We're already here, Kira. Let's focus. The ship broke through the final layer of storms, revealing the planet's surface. Cyrus guided them toward a jagged plateau where a faint glow pulsed at its center. The light was unlike anything Ethan had seen before, shifting in color and intensity like a heartbeat. That's it, Cirrus said softly, her gaze fixed on the glow. The relic's energy is leaking through. It knows we're here. Ethan frowned. You make it sound alive. It is, Cirrus said, her voice heavy with meaning. And it will test you. The ship landed with a jarring thud, its hull creaking against the howling winds. Ethan stepped out onto the rocky surface, his boots crunching against the brittle ground. The air was thick with heat and ash, making it difficult to breathe despite the filters in his suit. Kira and Cirrus followed, the latter moving with a strange sense of purpose as though the storm itself bent around her. She gestured toward a narrow pathway carved into the rock, its edges glowing faintly with the same shifting light as the relic. This way, Cirrus said. The relic is inside. Ethan glanced at Kira, who shrugged and tightened her grip on her rifle. Lead the way, she said, her tone cautious. The pathway led them into a cavern, its walls pulsating with energy. The air grew warmer as they descended, the glow intensifying until it filled the space with an almost blinding light. At the center of the cavern stood the relic, a massive, crystalline structure that seemed to pulse with life. Ethan approached slowly, his breath catching in his throat. The relic was unlike anything he had imagined. Its surface shimmered like liquid glass, and its edges shifted constantly as though it were reshaping itself in response to their presence. "This is it," Cirrus said, her voice reverent. "The source of the Starborn's power, the heart of their immortality." Ethan reached out toward the relic, but Cirrus grabbed his wrist, stopping him. "Wait, the relic will test you. If you're not ready, it will reject you. Or worse." Ethan pulled his hand back, his gaze flicking between Cirrus and the relic. "What kind of test?" Cirrus shook her head. "No one knows. The relic's consciousness adapts to each person. It will draw from your mind, your memories, your fears. If it finds you unworthy, it will destroy you." Kira stepped forward, her expression grim. "And you're sure this is the only way?" Cirrus nodded. "If the relic isn't severed from the Starborn, their power will continue to grow unchecked. It's the only way to stop them." Ethan took a deep breath, his mind racing. The relic pulsed, its light growing brighter as though it could sense his hesitation. "Let's get this over with," he said, stepping closer. The moment Ethan touched the relic, the world around him disappeared. He was no longer in the cavern. Instead, he stood in a field of endless stars, their light shimmering like scattered diamonds. The ground beneath his feet was smooth and reflective, like a mirror. A voice echoed through the void, soft, melodic, and distinctly alien. "Ethan Valen, you have come seeking truth." Ethan turned, searching for the source of the voice. "Who are you?" "We are the relic, the vessel of memory, the harbinger of power. You seek to sever us from the Starborn." Ethan straightened, his voice steady. "That's right. Your power has corrupted them. It's time for it to end." The voice grew sharper, its tone questioning. "And what will you do with that power? Would you wield it or destroy it?" Ethan hesitated. "I don't want it. I just want to stop the Starborn from destroying everything in their path." The stars around him shifted, forming shapes, memories from his past. He saw his family, his home, the life he had lost to the Starborn's conquests. The images twisted, showing him the destruction wrought by their greed. "Your pain fuels your resolve," the voice said. "But is it enough?" The ground beneath him cracked, and Ethan fell into darkness. He landed in a desolate wasteland, the sky burning with fire. Figures emerged from the shadows, Starborn warriors, their eyes glowing with malice. Ethan drew his weapon instinctively, but the relic's voice stopped him. "This is your test. Face your fear. Confront your doubt." The Starborn charged, and Ethan braced himself. He fought them with everything he had, but each time he struck one down, another rose in its place. The voice echoed around him, its tone challenging. "You cannot win with strength alone. What will you do, Ethan Valen?" Ethan closed his eyes, his mind racing. The relic wasn't testing his ability to fight. It was testing his resolve, his will to overcome. He lowered his weapon and stood tall, meeting the Starborn's gaze without fear. The figures stopped, their forms dissolving into light. The voice softened. "You understand. To sever power, you must wield none. To lead, you must surrender. You are worthy." Ethan's eyes snapped open, and he was back in the cavern. The relic's light was dimmer now, its energy swirling around him like a gentle breeze. Cirrus and Kira stood nearby, their expressions tense. "What happened?" Kira asked. Ethan turned to the relic, his voice steady. "It's done. The connection is severed." Cirrus stepped forward, her silver eyes wide. "You succeeded. The Starborn's power will fade." Ethan nodded, his body trembling with exhaustion. "It's over." But even as the relic's light faded, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The Starborn would come for them, desperate to reclaim what they had lost. And Ethan knew he would have to face them again. This time, not as a pawn in their game, but as a force to be reckoned with. For now, though, the galaxy had hope. and that was enough.